right, guys. So today we're going to go over neck and wrists. So I get asked about these areas a lot. If you guys have been following my Instagram, I have been doing some neck work recently. It's something that I use as a trainer for a lot of my general pop clients, especially women. They come in with upper back issues, this tightness, the same old blah, blah, blah. Neck is usually the first thing that I go to. I think just the numbers, women naturally have weaker neck than men. It's generally about 30% in strength. So I find that if you just use a cycle of neck training, then it kind of alleviates a lot of those issues going forward. So something to keep in mind when we're doing this is we're going to start with some rotations and things. Our neck is not our shoulders. Okay, so as we start warming up our neck, we want to make sure that we're not shrugging up into our ears with our shoulders or anything like that. We want to try to keep the shoulders down and away from the ears. And you might find that as we get started, that's going to be kind of a habit, is you're going to want to start shrugging up and stuff like that. So the other thing to look out for and make sure that you put in the chat box if you experience it is when you're doing the rotations as we warm up, if you feel any blocking in the range, that's what we call a closing joint angle. So essentially we have something that needs to be addressed immediately. So make sure you put it in the chat box, and then we'll just kind of manage it by the individual based on what's going on, but then we'll discuss it a little bit at the end, what you can do to remedy that. Because closing joint angle is we're kind of at the point in mobility where there's a lot of risk factor there. So we want to not have closing joint angle. And one of the things is it's when we're stretching, you want to feel a stretch on the opposite side. Okay, but you don't want to feel any sort of inhibited range or, like I said, a blocking sensation. There's a clear difference between what's a stretch and what feels almost like some restriction in terms of joint in that angle. So it's pretty common, especially in the neck, that you'll go to one side and you'll just feel kind of stuck or blocked up. But anyways, we'll address that. The other thing is that we're going to start with rotations, and then we're going to do some strengthening work for the neck, and then we're going to move on to wrist. So we're going to keep pretty much neck and wrist today because they're two actually super important joints that don't get addressed a lot. And you can do some stuff daily or whatever. But anyway, so we're going to get started. You can sit kind of whatever is most comfortable for you. So you can even sit in a chair if you want to sit in a chair. You can sit cross-legged. You can kneel. You can do whatever is most comfortable for the neck. You can even stand if you want, if you prefer. Basically, what we're going to do to start is we're going to do 10 neck circles. Okay, but we're not just going half-ass circles. We're going to do big, nice and slow circles, really trying to work in the outer range of what our mobility in our neck allows. So if you guys are, if you guys have done FRC, they call this CARS or whatever, call it what you want. It doesn't really matter. The point is we want to really just warm up the neck first, and then we're going to just take it through what range we have, and then from there we'll go into the stretch. Okay. So we're going to start by looking down. Okay, so make sure that as we look down towards the chest, that we don't push the neck forward. All right, so you want to keep the head kind of back, and then neck, chin down towards the chest, and then we're going to rotate and kind of look to your side. So let's go left first. Okay, and already I start to feel some stretching here. And then you're going to look over your shoulder as you rotate up, and back, and then rotate to the opposite side, and then down and around, and that's going to be 1. Okay, so we'll go around again.
I like the cue to lead with the chin as you start to go over through the top. Imagine the chin pulling up towards the ceiling. Be conscious of your shoulders not elevating.
If you guys are just waking up, might be a little sensitive and through the upper back, just because your spinal fluid and your nerves through your spine are pretty sensitive in the morning. But this will warm it up and kind of get you through it. Make sure you get the rotation in there. Maybe one more. Good. End of the chest. Shake it out. Some of you might have even felt some like adjusting, cracking, popping, or whatever. Okay. So now we're going to go the other way. All right. So again, breathing with the chin down into the sternum. Okay. And then we're rotating and extending. Rotating again. Flexing. Okay. One.
My neck's so tight, my mouth pulls open when I go over the top.
Yeah, especially going around the top aspect here. Okay. Let's just keep going. Like right here, as we rotate and lean away. All right. You're going to feel like really a nice release here in the front of the neck. For me, it's when I go to this side because I'm right-handed. I have my phone. And I'm always looking down to the right, so it's actually the right side of my neck actually. I feel the most. So if you guys work at a computer, and your computer's angled to the side, generally the front aspect of that part of your neck's going to be a little bit tighter. Okay, just remember to watch the shoulders. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just be mindful of it. More. That part of it for me is always. Whew. One more. Good. So we can check it out. We'll give everyone a couple seconds to finish that one. Okay, so now we're going to work on flexion. Okay, so pulling the chin down towards the sternum and extension. Okay, when we do flexion, again, we want to keep, I'll kind of show you guys from the side. We want to keep the chin back and then flex down into the sternum. Okay, we don't want to push the head forward and flex down. So we want to keep basically the ears kind of in line with our shoulders and then flexing down. Okay. So we're going to do one rep. We're going to hold each side for 5 seconds. Okay, so really actively contracting the front of your neck, pull the chin down. Okay. We're going to slowly lift. And again, with the chin, think about pulling your chin up towards the sky. Okay, so don't just like cock your head back, but really like lifting the chin. All right, and here we're going to go 5. Back down the flexion. We're going to do 10 reps, so that's 1. Back to extension. 2. 3.
Think about leading with your chin.
Really focus on keeping those shoulders down, guys. So especially as you extend upwards. Okay, so when we go here, really keep those shoulders down because if you're tight to the front of the neck and do like the clavicle, you're going to want to elevate up. Some of you guys already might be feeling a lot of tension release kind of through the neck and back.
The key is not to move your torso. Don't move your chest or your sternum back and forth, just the neck.
nice stretch, like right above my Adam's apple, right underneath my chin here. Down. We've done a few more. I lost count, but I think 3 or 4 more. Down, flexion. Up to extension. Good. We'll do 2 more. And last one. Really think about lifting that chin. You don't get lazy on the extension. Think the chin up towards the sky. And then back to neutral. Good. So you can roll your shoulders out, shake it out. Hopefully everyone's starting to kind of feel some tension release going through the neck. Okay, so now we're going to work on rotations. All right, so again, we kind of want the head back, sit, pretty good posture. We're going to rotate to one side. You can pick whatever side's first. We're going to go each side. It's 1 rep. Again, we're going to do 10 reps, 5 seconds on each side. Okay, so when you do this, you want to think about looking back over your shoulder as much as you can. Okay, so you'll get a nice contraction through that upper trap right here on the side of the neck. And on the opposite side, we should get a good stretch through the opposite. So we'll go ahead. Feel a nice stretch here. Okay. We're trying to look back and over our shoulder. And slowly rotate to the other side. Good, and that's 1. So when I go to my left, I feel actually more stretch on my right. Like this is my tighter side. I drive the car, obviously, and I'm always looking right to back out and things like that. So, you'll start to find these little things that you do in your daily life and you don't even realize where you're carrying tension. Good. And just be weary on this one, guys. This might be one where you guys start to feel a little bit of that closing angle pain, or closing angle joint blockage kind of through the clavicle area. So just be mindful in case you are. And again, keep your shoulders down. Don't shrug the shoulders up. Good, that's 2. Go back to the other side. And switch. Good. 3. Switch. Some of you guys might even start to feel stretching. You have these muscles that run along the side of your skull here, even your jaw and your cheeks. Okay, you might even start to feel all that start to stretch out. All right, rotate. Just so you guys know, the fascia from your jawline runs down your hamstrings. Okay, so your opposite jaw is connected to your opposite foot. So fascially, the left part of my jaw is connected to my right plantar fascia. So it runs and it coils down all the way to the opposite side. Rotate. Good, we'll do about 4 or 5 more. So back to the first side. And we're spending a lot of time here, guys, because 1, time under tension is important, but 2, a lot of people haven't actually trained their neck, so I really want to spend a lot of time. Also, the neck responds to high volume very quickly.
Just think about if I were spotting you on this stretch too, the first thing I'm going to do is press down on the opposite shoulder that you're turning. So with every turn, press that shoulder down and you'll just feel that stretch extend a little bit more.
Do about 3 more. All right. So I'm now starting to get to the point where I'm actually not getting any stretch. So I just kind of feel some contraction on the side I'm turning to. And now I'm getting to the point in these reps where I'm not feeling the stretch that I was feeling earlier here. Just a slight one. And we'll say this is the last one. All right, so go back to that second side. Good, and relax. Good. All right, so we did flexion and extension. We did rotation. Now we're going to do side flexion and extension. Now this is going to be one that's going to be the most important for keeping the shoulders down, because you're going to find as you go to bend to one side, you're going to want to go like this. Okay, so really focus on keeping the shoulders down. All right, we're going to do the same thing here. So whatever side you've been starting with, we'll go to that side first. Think about touching your ear to your shoulder, keeping your shoulders down. Switch. Back to the first side. So if you guys are involved in any throwing sports or tennis or anything like that, you might find that the side that you throw with is going to be a lot tighter, just because the scapula elevates so much. Good. That's 2. And again, we want to breathe with our diaphragm, so we shouldn't see any elevation of the shoulders during this. So this is going to really make sure that we're breathing into the right places. Switch.
Make sure you're not lifting your chin up. Okay, your chin stays in a neutral position.
Yeah, you don't want to go back, guys. You don't want to extend. You want to keep it pretty neutral. Just switch straight forward. Good. Opposite side. Now, if you really want to help increase the stretch, one thing you guys could do while you're doing, especially the side flexion or the side extension, is if you're sitting in a chair, you can grasp onto the side of that chair and pull away from that side that you're on. So that'll really help force the shoulder down. It's not necessary if you have good control, but it can definitely help if you do find yourself constantly wanting to elevate the shoulder as you go to stretch the side of the neck. We'll do a few more. So a nice stretch to the upper trap, scalenes. It's kind of hard to, I'm like sitting on the ground, so cross my arms so I'm not elevating. Okay, let's just do one more, all right? If you guys feel any adjustments happening in the neck, okay, chiropractors, we go in and they just move things around. They mobilize the joints and the soft tissue. You can do it yourself. You don't have to go to a chiro to get it done, okay? Good. So we did flexion, extension, side flexion, and rotation, okay? Now, what I want to do now is go into some strengthening work for the neck. So we're just going to do one set. It's going to be pretty high volume. We're going to shoot for 50 reps, okay? If you're totally new to neck training or even just strength training in general, my advice would be just to do these sitting upright like you are now or standing. If you want to make it a little bit more challenging, you can lay prone on the floor, okay? So, or actually first let's lay on our backs, okay? We're going to lay supine. So we're going to do flexion first, 50 reps. I don't like to combine flexion and extension unless I'm doing weighted, but if I'm just doing like the body weight one, we've already stretched out the neck, so now I want to kind of strengthen and build up the endurance in the certain ranges. So I just want my head to go back to neutral. Also because people start to get super dizzy if they're just like repping out flexion and extension, because your head just, you know, your peripheral, your vision is just all over the place, and you're going to start to get really dizzy. People start to even feel sick. So I'm going to back the camera out a little bit so you guys can see me a little better. And I'm going to lay on my back, and we're going to work on flexion, okay? So just give me a second to do that. Lucas, if he wants to give any tips while I kind of set this up.
Big thing I think for you to start taking home from this is, what's the first thing that usually your massage therapist or chiro does when you go see them? They work on your neck. And it's because we don't take care of our necks enough. And it's really just a matter of doing these movements. So flexion, extension, rotation, lateral flexion, like just putting that time in is going to alleviate symptoms that we have and that we carry through our neck. And as Jeff said, how it ties in down through plantar fascia. It's just a matter if we want to do it, take the time to do it ourselves, or if we want to go pay a professional to do it, you know, for an hour or so more thoroughly. But really, we can take care of a lot of this stuff if we just put the time in. So I think that's the big take home with the neck work we're doing here today, is that you can really take care of your neck on your own if you just know the movements, you know the intention behind the movements, and you put the work in.
All right, so we're going to start with flexion. Okay, we're going to shoot for 50 reps, guys, but you don't have to do all 50 reps. Okay, do whatever you're comfortable with. Try to get at least 20 to 25 reps. But just know that you should be able to really get up there. The neck is really endurance, not a maximum strength, obviously. Okay, you can like see some stuff in your neck. If you just do this for like a good month, things will start to improve very quickly. Okay, so we're going to start here. All right, so the whole goal again is not pushing the head forward, we're just flexing the chin down through the sternum. Okay, so we'll go ahead. I'm just going to count. If I try to count out loud while you talk at the same time, it's going to be a mess. So we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so let's follow along.
You're going to feel like you want your shoulders to elevate into a crunch, and that's not the distance we want to go. We want to just engage the neck. Keep the shoulders down.
Shoulders on the mat. Already you guys on the holy stuff. It's already burning.
Hold that top position. Don't be quick to go back to the floor. So when we go into as much flexion as possible, the key is to hold and stretch, and then go back down. That's it.
You guys might be good stretching through the puppy traps and longboard. You control it back down, guys. Remember, gravity is our friend here. He's also our friend. And the center of the story.
Keep going, Stephanie.
Burns, we just try to push through, guys. As long as you don't feel any broken angle joint.
Try to relax your arms. Don't have your arms up all stiff and rigid. Just yes, that's better.
Yeah. You can also like think about reaching your hands towards your heels if that helps keep your shoulders down.
Yeah, same thing there. You want the shoulders down. So if you look at Jeff's arms, he's reaching to his heels. Hold flexion. Return back to the mat slowly. Reach your fingertips to your heels. Keep the shoulders down. Flex. Chin in. Good job. Try to curl the neck in. Curl, chin down. Reach your fingers to your heels. Curl the chin in. Keep your fingers to your heels.
Curl it down, trying to touch the chin to your sternum. Woo.
Slowly back to the floor. Shoulders back.
So basically, guys, you can safely take this to failure. To the point where you feel like you can't even lift your neck up anymore. Okay?
So imagine reaching the fingertips towards the heels with every flexion. Reach. Keep the shoulders down, nice and slow.
Two more. And relax. Woo. Rotate your neck around. Okay. That was probably brutally hard for a lot of people. It was brutally hard for me. Okay. It's just one of those things when it's going to start to burn. Just like any other exercise, you just want to keep pushing through it. Again, you can take it to failure. Okay. You're not weighted. It's just essentially a body weight movement. And there's really no risk, especially at that angle, to just go to failure. So a lot of us might feel all front of our necks lit up all the way up into the bottom of our chin. Okay, so that's what we want. So now we're going to go extension. Okay, so when we do extension, I actually want people on their forearms. Okay, so instead of just laying totally flat on the ground, I want you on your forearms. And we don't have to go all the way into flexion on this one. Just come back to like a real kind of to the mid range, and then we're going to focus on extending back. Okay, this is going to feel really good now, opening up that side that we just trained. So we're going to go ahead and go into some extension work again. This is a really good starting point for people who want to train the neck extensors. I like to train the neck extensors a lot more than the flexors, just because in our daily life we probably abuse the neck flexors a lot more than we do our extensors. So I usually, depending for a client, I'll double up the volume initially, or they'll do more extensor work and then we'll do flexor work. But we're going to go ahead here. We're going to go onto the forearms. Okay. So same thing. You can kind of ball your hands up into a fist, or you can lay them flat on the ground, whatever is more comfortable for you. Okay. So again, what we want to do here is we're going to curl down, and then really the most important thing is think about lifting the chin up and looking up in front of you, and above. Okay. So that's one rep.
Roll your shoulder blades around and down so that they're set in place. The more range you can find in flexion first, the more length you'll get through the neck, and then move slowly into as much extension as you can without elevating your shoulders.
But for us men in here, this is really big practice. We're learning how to say yes to our wives and girlfriends. Okay? We need to practice that more often. Yes, definitely. Definitely.
That's why you got so much range there, Jeff.
That's exactly. We've been practicing this for a while now. Work to your kids, yes.
Try to keep your shoulder blades set so that you're not collapsed in your shoulder blades. So shoulder blades set so that you're really honing in on that neck. Yeah, that's better. Good. Nice and slow when you go back into flexion. Lengthen out as much as you can. Imagine that the top of your head is pulling outward as you go back down, so you're staying long through the neck. Keep the top of the head moving forward. Good.
One more. Oh, the grind is real. Good. Correct. So that was the extensors. All right. So again, good upper back builder, good neck builder. Again, our trap, okay, upper traps in particular, very important. You know, a lot of guys that have nice, huge developed traps, and ladies too, if you're into that sort of thing. You know, you'll find that they often don't have a lot of neck issues. They don't have back tightness and shoulder tightness and all these things, right? So one of the reasons is because they just move their shoulders through so much range of motion, but again, they move their shoulders and their neck independent of one another, okay? If you guys are doing Jefferson curls or, you know, obviously if you're doing any extensor work like deadlift, back extension, etc., you know, the Russians found in the 60s that the more extended the neck, the more you actually activate the entire posterior extensor. So, you know, there is a lot of benefit to extending the neck, especially in your strength training. The Chinese are, you know, say what you will about how they train, but if you ever watch them squat or anything on the concentric every single time, they lift the head first. Russians are pretty much the same way because it just helps get more of the eccentric chain activated, especially when you're going through sticks and things like that. If you're doing bridge work, you know, on the other side of the coin, maybe not lifting weights, but you've done a lot of bridge work and things like that. Our neck is in a pretty compromised position because it's the closest thing to the floor other than our hands. And for a lot of people in the beginning, they actually kind of have to prop themselves up on the top of their head before they push up into the bridge. So it's good to just have some you know, a baseline of strength and mobility through the neck. And then you get into even more advanced work like wrestlers and judo and jiu-jitsu and things like that. Most grappling martial arts, they train neck all the time. Obviously contact sports, football, hockey, and things like that. Neck training is extremely important because of the high rate of concussions and stuff like that. So, you know, and again, if you're a bodybuilder, you know, the relative size of your neck compared to your biceps and calves and things is going to be super important. You know, you don't want to be that guy that's like super yoked, big arms, big calves, you know, and then you have like no neck. That would be kind of awkward looking. So it has a lot of applications to a lot of different sports, whether you're training yourself or your athletes or your clients. You know, again, even for Gen Pop clients, especially women, it's just a really good place to start because 9 out of 10 of my clients who come to me, oh, my neck, my shoulders, and my block. You know, so it's always a good place to start, and you'll find that the range of motion in their neck is usually extremely compromised because they don't move it. So it's really, really basic. So that's basic neck work. We'll go more into that in the future. You could also train the rotation. Again, if you look on my Instagram recently, and from that same position where you keep the chin relatively tucked and against gravity, you're rotating. Okay, so it's kind of a combination again of the flexors, but also working rotation. In rotation, you'll find that like that's kind of that and the side flexion extension are kind of a way to balance out. So if you have any asymmetry from side to side, those are kind of your two that you go to for that. So with that being said, we'll kind of go into elbows and I said wrist, but elbows and wrists really. And we'll get started here. So we're going to go ahead and just basically the same thing with the neck. What time is it, Lucas?
22.
We got time. Okay, we got plenty of time for this. So we're just going to start with some wrist rotations, but we're going to do one at a time. And what a lot of people are going to have to do is kind of like block the wrist and hold it, okay? Because if you just go free, you're going to want to do a lot of stuff with the elbow and the shoulder and everything else. So Locking the wrist, no matter what level you're at, is going to be super important, okay? And then, so basically what we're going to start to do first is we're going to do wrist flexion. So for all my CrossFitters out there and all my guys that want to do muscle ups and, you know, everything, this is going to be super important to you. This position, this 90-degree angle of the forearm is going to be very important if you want to do gymnastics and body weight skills. So just keep in mind that this, you know, for all you guys that struggle with false grip, this is it right here. Okay, so we're going to start with wrist flexion. Okay, let's go right arm first. So we're going to flex down, then we're going to rotate, extend, and then flex down again. So that's 1, 2.
I like to keep the thumb squeezed in here too, right? So that you know you're not doing all this kind of stuff with your funky stuff.
Yeah, and don't, yep. So this should all just be wrist, guys. So you don't want to be rotating too much from the elbow, the forearm, okay? So.
Like when I go into extension, my thumb wants to come off. So that's a good cue to squeeze your thumb harder.
Yeah, keep a nice balled up fist. Do one more. Good. And again, too, we want to be able to actively get pretty close to 90 degrees, you know, extension. So that's going to be super important too, and we'll go address that. So let's go ahead and go to our left wrist. Same thing, block it off. Okay, grab it, flex, extend, and rotate. Keep a nice fist. You guys can, you know, think about you're crushing something in your palm. And for in the future when you're doing this, you can always grab an object if you want, if it helps, kind of give you that feedback. Okay, don't forget the extension portion of this, because I almost did. So make sure you extend back before you rotate. So all my keyboard warriors, which I, funny enough, have become with the online coaching, make sure that we work on our wrists, right? Because we're going to be here all day long. We got to really open up that extension. All right, so let's just do a couple more, and then we're going to get into our stretches. Good. Okay. Actually, real quick, let's just go ahead and do 10 reps, one back and forth. So not even rotating, just flexing and extending. So you can, again, you can block your forearm however you want. Let's just go ahead and extend. Let's really isolate these two. So flex. I feel a nice stretch right in the top of my wrist there. You know, all my guys that lift weights and want to do front squats and things like that, obviously, wrist extension is important. Push-ups. Any body weight pressing work, really, bench press, you know, extension is important. Some of us might even just be feeling this through our elbow extensors and flexors. Might be burning. Okay, when you go body weight, again, wrist is another one of those areas, just like neck, that a lot of volume for a short amount of time will give you a lot of benefit. Okay, so you have like crush grippers and things like that. You know, again, 4 to 6 weeks of just really high volume, they respond really well. Like going to failure and stuff, there's no risk to that. You'll find that the health of your wrists and your elbows will improve dramatically in just such a short amount of time. You don't have to invest too much training in this thing. You know, I've been posting a lot of this stuff lately just to create some content and give people some things to think with. But when you get a pretty good foundation of this stuff, you don't have to have it all the time. You know, it's not something that needs to be in your program year round, because once you isolate these things and you get pretty good mobility and baseline of strength, you're going to be using it in your training, right? It's in almost everything that you do. So you just want, especially like Jefferson curls, like the biggest cue I make for Jefferson curls is you start with flexing the neck. And a lot of people miss that aspect. They just kind of like, you know, start with the shoulder. They don't actually curl down the neck. So they miss a whole piece of the movement. So there's a lot of things you can do in your normal training that will take care of these things, but we just got to make sure we set a baseline first. So with that being said, let's go into the stretches. I'm actually going to move this so it's a little easier to see. first thing, all right, we want the fingers forward. We want palms on the ground, okay? The other most important thing we're gonna look at here is elbows. We want our elbows extended if we can. If we cannot, we need to work on being able to do that. It is very important that you can extend your elbow, okay? Especially, again, if you're doing, you know, I'm not even gonna say, if you're doing anything, you need to be able to extend your elbow, okay? You're carrying your groceries in your car, you might wanna be able to extend your elbow. So we're gonna start by leaning forward. So think about almost pushing into the floor, okay? And then taking our shoulders out over our fingertips, keeping the back of our palm and all of our fingers on the mat, trying to keep the elbows straight. So if you need to, you can think about squeezing your triceps to help keep that elbow locked out, okay? Then we're gonna rock back slightly towards our heels just to come out of the stretch. Don't go too far, and then back. So we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, and then back. Another rep. 1, 2, 3. We're gonna do 10 of these. 2, 3.
Try to use your wrist to go back, not your body. So actually press yourself back.
Yeah, think about pressing the floor away from you.
Keep your
sliding your hands up.
Keep your shoulders strong against gravity, right? So not shoulders together, shoulders apart. Yep. Make the wrist do the work.
Yeah, my forearms are burning. So you want to think about to pull your shoulders out over your hands. Think about pulling the palms of your hands towards your knees. And then think about pushing the floor away from you. So basically think about just pushing and pulling the floor away from you. Good. Let's do one more. Good. All right. Now we're going to switch. So now we're going to go fingers facing us. So we're going to rotate so that the pit of the elbow is facing forward. Okay, so we're here. Again, extending the elbows, lock out that tricep. And now here, we're leaning back. So shoulders back towards our heels. Now, so it's the opposite. Okay, so the more we get back, the more we get a stretch. And then go forward slightly to come out of the stretch, and then back. This is 2. 3. 4.
Again, keep your back strong against gravity. Don't let your shoulder blades fall
Don't
together.
don't shrug into your shoulders, guys.
Make the wrist do the work.
6. 7. 8. 9. Last one. And 10. Good. Now from here, we're going to go the opposite direction. So we're still going to try to get our fingers facing us as much as we can, but we're going to internally rotate the shoulder instead of externally rotate the shoulder. Okay. So mine are going to be at about 45 degrees. Lock out. So again, this one's probably going to be the hardest one for people to lock out. Here, let me try to get on the camera a little better. So the first movement for you guys before you even go anywhere is just trying to straighten out those elbows. Okay. So for most people, that might be a stretch. So then you would just bend, okay, and then go back out into the stretch for 3 seconds. Now, if you don't get a really good stretch, now from here, we can stay in this position. And again, we can lean away. That's 1, 2. Really focus on keeping those triceps locked out. 3, 4, 5. Now this hand position, this chain runs all the way into our lat. Okay, so it's going to run all the way up through our tricep into our lat. It's our ulnar nerve. Okay, so this is going to really help open up. I'm going to go ahead and readjust real quick. So I got a little bit more mobility now. Got 2 more. bend the elbows and slowly rotate back out. Okay, you guys can shake it out if you want. We're gonna do 2 more for the wrists. Okay, so now we're gonna go on top of the hand. Elbows or fingers facing us. Okay, so now we're on top of the hand. Thumbs are facing one another. Again, this is going to be another one where if you're really tight through the forearm extensors, which most people are going to be because their extensors are much tighter than the flexors, you might not be able to straighten out the elbows. It's okay for now, but over time, again, we want to work on really locking out those elbows. And you can see how my elbows even rotated forward. Okay, so now we're going to lean back. It's 1, 2. Again, if you guys can't straighten out, the first step for you might be your stretch, and then you bend, and then re-straighten out. Sorry.
If this is too easy, you curl into a fist.
Yep. Oh yeah, and we addressed that last week with a member who was getting pinching. If you really curl your hands up into a fist, it's going to really increase the range that you can get and take the fingers out of it, because what happens is you're going to start to compensate by moving the fingers. So when the fingers are curled up, the extensors are in the most stretched position they can possibly be in.
This is amazing.
My guys that want to do muscle ups, you should be able to get your wrists into this position.
Major cause of wrist pain here is this poor extension tightness. So your wrist is in pain because it's overused. The extensors are so tight that they can't open up and take pressure off the wrist.
Do a couple more. So I'm thinking about, I'm almost, my thumb cramped. It's fighting so hard to just flex. Okay, so there's some wrist and flexor and extensor stretching. Okay, now later, if you really want to and you want to get experimental, you can start training push-ups with different wrist positions. I know Lucas and I, from being in the gymnastic body system for years, we trained a lot of wrist push-ups and things like that. So, a lot of guys, again, you do push-ups here. Every now and then, it'd be good to do some push-ups here where you can really strengthen that range, right? Again, you don't have to be dogmatic about it. It's not something you have to be religious about, but throwing it in for some variation or even in warm-ups and things like that will really help get the wrists nice and strong. Remember, the bones in your wrist are very, very small, so you just want to be careful about the progression and the rate at which you progress into doing that kind of thing. Obviously, maybe first, you would do them, from your knees, right? And then later you would go where the knees are farther away until you're in a full push-up or whatever. But we'll save that for another time. Lucas, is there anything else you think maybe we should go over? Yeah, one. Let's do one more actually for the extensors. It's not really any different than the first one, other than just alternating a different variation, and I feel like you can get a little bit more angle. Okay, so again, you can go here, or you can ball the fists if you want to be a little bit more challenging. Now you want to lean away. So fingers, essentially, or knuckles should be facing each other, okay? And you're just going to lean side to side.
Try to lock your elbows out if you can, as much as possible. So just keep trying to keep the elbows locked. Go into a fist if it's too easy.
Oh, my flexion. My wrist on the cramp. Do a couple more on each side. Well, actually, how much time do we have, Lucas?
5 minutes.
Okay, let's just do one more stretch for the fingers, actually, and then we'll go into some questions if we want to. So for the finger stretch, again, everyone, again, you're probably gonna be pretty tight here. Part of that extension is also finger extension, especially again for front squatting. You should technically have 90 degrees of extension at the fingers. I probably don't even have that, so don't be too worried if you don't. But again, it's just one of those things you can work on. So from here, locking out those elbows. I want you to actually keep the knuckles of the palm down on the ground, but then push the fingers into the floor. And also, I would prefer it if you bring the fingers together, because if the fingers are too splayed out, you're not going to get as good a stretch on the pinky part of the finger. So actually try to keep them straight, like perfectly together, and then go up. We'll just go 10. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 2.
Good job, Patrick. That's a nice angle.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Good. So I know that was, you feel like, okay, we did a little bit of work with a lot of volume. That's all you need, okay? You don't have to get fancy. You don't have to do tons of variation. I mean, obviously, we basically stretch out your neck and your wrists for almost an hour. Really it's like 45, 50 minutes. And now you don't ever have to really spend that much time on it. But we just really want to make sure that when we do these lessons, we go into depth on each area to just really show you. I mean, you can take things as serious as you want, you know what I mean? And depending on you, your client, and your athlete's needs, there's a lot of directions you can take this. There's a lot of different application that you can do with these things. Again, neck and wrist is something that's going to be almost in all my clients' programs as a trainer for 4 to 6 months. I don't train a lot of people in person nowadays, just because the online is just, we just can't do it. It takes too much time. So we're fortunate that we're able to just do this with clients online. But for a lot of I know a lot of people in here are also trainers and things like that. Otherwise, if you're not a trainer, maybe you learned something today. You don't have to hire a trainer who's going to give you the same thing. You can just take it from our system and what we've created here. So hopefully that gave you guys like a nice baseline of wrists and neck, and a little bit of elbow too. Of course, I don't go into elbow stretching too early with people because people get a little funny about it. But again, you want to be able to. A lot of guys have tight biceps, so maybe we'll address that in another one. So let's go ahead and take some questions. If anyone wants, you guys can turn on your mics if you want to just chat.
We have
any questions?
One in the chat box already here. Favorite protocol to increase elbow extension?
Bicep work initially. So elbow stretching is kind of like this. It's a touchy subject. Again, because just like elbows and wrists, like anything, it's based off the old school thought that you're gonna like stretch out your tendons or something. Your tendons can absorb a lot of force, much more than you're ever going to really be able to stretch them through. So you don't have to, if you're stretching your elbows, like I used to stretch my elbows for hand balancing and stuff. You can stretch your elbows. You can stretch out your bicep. You're not gonna increase the mobility of the ligaments of your elbow. It's just not gonna happen. It's gonna be mostly soft tissue. But bicep curls are a good, especially like Scott curls. It's a good way to start working up with very light weight, but extending the elbow all the way. Okay, so that's gonna be really the main area. Now, if you're like a hand balancer or something like that, circ, acrobatics, where you maybe even require some hyperextension of the elbow, stretching is going to be fine, but I would reserve that for people with that discipline. It's not really needed for anybody else. Also, hyperextension is not a bad thing, guys, as long as you have strength in the bicep, okay? Which again, if you have hyperextended elbows, curls are going to be even more important for you, especially because genetically your elbow does go into a little bit farther range, and just like anything, the same rules apply. You want to be strong there. So that's how I would apply it. Elbow work, once a week, isolating with some nice curls would probably be the place to start initially.
One that I really like that helped me out a lot as well. So when we were doing the reverse grip stretch, that stretch itself puts the bicep in the most stretch. So fingertips facing you. Now my bicep is extended and I have the most stretch and elbow extension. So from there, we could even attach a band to a
Yeah.
and have the band pull the elbow, but I can also just use my knee. So my knee just goes just above the elbow, and I can basically lean back into that and find a little bit more elbow extension. And it actually, I don't even feel that in my wrist. I feel it just in the pit of the elbow. But that position is going to put you in the most specific position for elbow extension, which is basically, like Jeff was saying, bicep curls. So when we're in that deep bicep curl outer range kind of position, that position there, any kind of work you can do in full elbow extension is going to give you the most transfer.
Yeah. That's another. Are you reading the? Yeah, let's see. Got a lot of chats. Good. All right. So.
See the one on the prone neck extension there?
On the prone neck extension, I don't focus so much on it, again, because I find that if people go too quickly between both, they start to get like kind of dizzy. So, again, as long as you're working flexion, you can just work extension. So just going back to neutral for me would be more than enough when I'm particularly isolating that. Now, in a program, like for instance, I do have neck extensions in my program right now, weighted, that I take through the full range because I don't isolate my flexors any other way. But again, it's one of those things, guys, where like most people don't have too much of an issue with the neck flexors as much as they do the extenders. So the most important thing is going to be extension. I have Jefferson curls in my program right now too. So I guess technically I'm getting neck flexion as well. So again, it would come down to program design and kind of how you're using the exercise. That's probably the best answer for that one. So, golfer's elbow.
Yeah, you see that one?
So extension work, Benjamin. You're just spending too much time in flexion. Doing these stretches and opening up extension, but doing wrist extension curls, like even with the, you could do it on the edge of a bench and start curling up. You might have to start with body weight. But, starting to do that with a dumbbell and just strengthening up the extenders. They have all sorts of fancy gadgets like Iron Mind has tons of different little gadgets that you can do. I actually, in my garage, I wish I should have brought it out for this class. I have a rotator that I can adjust. So you keep your elbows tucked, and it's actually you can adjust the tension increase, but it's just a fat grip, basically rotator, and you just practice alternating the rotation so it trains your flexion and extension. So there's a lot of ways you can do it with fancy gadgets or without, but you just need more extension work. So tendonitis is just overuse. You're spending too much time here that you need to balance it out with strengthening extension work. Not even just, I can do push-ups then. No, you need to actually strengthen the extensive.
I like
Calvo
on that too.
You like what?
Just pronation work on that too. When you start to get the splinting into the forearms.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's tennis elbow because when they swing the club, again, instead of rotating from the body, they tend to rotate from that wrist, and they just keep overusing that. Same with tennis is the opposite. So instead of keeping a neutral grip and hitting with the shoulder, they tend to extend the wrist in control of the racket. I guess to try to kind of get like a snap on the racket or whatever. So we actually have an in-house pro tennis athlete, guy who's been on the circuit, named is Marcel. You guys probably haven't seen him a lot because he's kind of behind the scenes, but he's a tennis player and he's done a lot of grip work and has overcome like tennis elbow and golfer's elbow. It's just practice, do more of what you're not doing, which is the opposite. So tennis elbow is going to be more extensor overuse and you need more flexor, and then golfers is the opposite. So physical tools that, how often should I work the neck in order to strengthen it? So 2 times a week, high volume like we did today is going to be fine for 4 to 6 week phase. Your neck's going to grow. The hypertrophy of your neck's going to increase. and your traps and your upper back, and then you're just going to have a really good base. From there, I would maybe just get into some warm-ups with neck work after that point. Physical tools for neck work. You know, if you're really struggling and have soft tissue issues in the neck, see a chiro, see a physical therapist, see somebody who's a good soft tissue practitioner. I think using tools and stuff on your neck by yourself is kind of a risky. It's kind of risky. You know, as far as going in and trying to scrape stuff, there's a lot of ligaments and bones and the skin. There's just not a lot of tissue around the joints in the shoulder and neck. So finding a professional to do it, but then applying these strengthening things. You know, I made a kind of jokingly post about how, you know, our friend Sally went to the chiro and was told not to move her neck and then come back and blah, 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 blah. You know, if you go get soft tissue work done, guys, you have to implement the neurological and physiological changes by exercising that area. Passive inputs yield passive results. So if something is passively being input into your body or onto your body or whatever, those are the kind of results you're going to have. So you want to be as active in your recovery and strengthening and training if soft tissue work is something you seek out. I seek it out myself. I don't do it very often. Unfortunately, I don't have to, but you know, I'll schedule a massage or something before I go train. So I go get that done, and then I go lock those improvements in with my training, and that's overall what's going to give you the best result. And on the prone neck extension, the best shoulder position would be depressed. So shoulders down and kind of away from your ears. Okay, so if we want to open up voice questions to anybody who might want to ask any questions, feel free. I'll let Lucas take these.
If you want to unmute and ask a question, you can do that now.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and feel free to unmute and join in and chat. And we like to hear from you guys. We're all in isolation here right now. Any questions?
Any thoughts on doing a hips one soon? I got terrible internal rotation. I need it.
Yeah, so if you're an ATG member, Lucas did a presentation for Real Movement that was hips and middle split. So if you want to go ahead and get started on that, just go to the website under my section. It's under there. We have the classes listed. This will be posted as well this week.
Okay,
all
cool.
these classes, just in case anybody doesn't know, I sent it out in the email and I've been posting about it, but all these classes are going to be logged as part of the ATG membership. So as long as you have your membership, you'll always have access to these classes. You can go back to them at any point and go through them and go retake them, and they'll streamline as we go along, but they'll always be accessible to you. That's why we record them. But so our next one will probably go back more into calves, ankle, hamstrings, quads, etc. And then the one after that will reroute back around to groin, middle split kind of deal. But if you want to get started on something this week, just go check the website out. There's one of the classes up there, and we address that, so you can start working from there.
Cool. Thank you.
Stephanie, you look confused. Do you have questions?
No, I was reading one of the questions, and I want to maybe if you could touch on this: the stretching and strengthening for finger tendonitis. I was just reading the questions. That seems interesting, and I would like to hear, I don't know, your point on that one.
Yeah. So yeah, go ahead, Lucas. Go on.
Well, some of those wrist exercises we were doing, like the one where we're pressing up. So that's called the finger. That's not the fingertip one. What was that one called again, Jeff? I always forget.
First knuckle.
First knuckle. Yeah. First knuckle strength. So a lot of these wrist stretches can be progressed to strength exercises. So your thought process as a student of flexibility and range should always be, where's this position going to take me? So yeah, we're doing these wrist stretches, but okay, so if I can do a wrist stretch now easily on the back of my hands, why aren't I increasing my strength and moving into plank? So first knuckle, same thing. So if I'm on my first knuckle, why aren't I challenging that strength and that range by coming up into a plank and or moving into push-ups? Those positions can be also progressed against the wall. So you could do that leaning against the wall. So every single movement and position and range, your thought process as a student and a client should be, how can I be strong there? So I think something like finger tendonitis can be corrected with that kind of thought process through these wrist protocols. So like first knuckle push up, fingertip, or you could say first knuckle plank, fingertip plank. That's going to increase your strength there. Another one that I really like doing is just basic articulated movements with your fingers. So if you can roll your fingers in as much as possible and then bring them in to a fist and back out, right? So these are finger exercises. Like if you're not prepping your fingers and you have finger tendonitis, I mean, that's something I've even learned through guitar playing. Like I play a lot of guitar my whole life, and that was prep exercises for fingers, right? So I think that if you're not doing that work, that should be something that you start addressing. You did do the first knuckle stretch. You probably felt a serious stretch through the fascia of your hand. So finger tendonitis can be also because you're really bound up in the base of your hand as well. So just a little bit outside the box. Usually issue stemming in one area is from things around it. So, you know, my back is really sore and tight. I should strengthen my back. No, you should actually increase your strength and range around the hips and glutes, right? So it's that thought process, kind of think around the picture.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, fingers, guys, you know, we're all on the keyboards and stuff, and they're here all the time. They're very rarely extended. So just trying to literally touch the back of your hand with the back of your fingers, like I feel it in my, you know what I mean? Like there aren't exercises for all these things because it's not cute, it's not sexy, it's not fancy, you can't really put a name to it, but you have to get creative, especially as a coach, on, you know, what am I dealing with? Why am I dealing with it? And when we know why, you know, finger tendonitis, again, even this might be touchy for some people, but even arthritis, guys, it's just calcification of the joints because they lack mobility. That's it. You know, there's other factors like inflammation in the body and things like that, but arthritis is simply calcification of the joints because lack of synovial fluid and not getting enough movement through the joints. You don't have to make it any more complicated than that. And the more we can take those movements through, the better we're going to be. Now, one other thing with the extension of the fingers is, again, if you're into the little tools and gadgets, I think Iron Mind also makes these finger extensors. They use them a lot for basketball players to train how to palm the ball, because their finger extensors actually have to be pretty strong, especially with small hands. It's like this little crafted rubber band that basically loops around each finger, and they have different strengths, and you basically just extend against that band, so it has resistance. So if you want to buy, you probably find them on Amazon or whatever. They're super cheap. They're like little silicone, just rubber band things that kind of help strengthen that position if you're dealing with tendonitis of the fingers. But like Lucas said, just simple, you know, curling and extending of the fingers and things like that. You just need to add a little bit more of that movement. It doesn't have to be the primary focus of your training, but it should be your warm-ups and cool-downs. So.
Hi, Jeff. I have a quick question. I dislocated my right wrist when I was young. Actually, two questions. Do you think I should do this program that we did today for our wrist once a week, twice a week, or do you have a specified amount of days basically I should train with that? And also, I've broken my left ring finger, and I can't close this. Even though the doctor said I didn't need surgery, this finger here I cannot fully close like the other ones, and it's really affecting my grip strength. I did it about 2 years ago. It's never been the same.
Okay. So just some information for people who understand what happens when we have an injury, okay? When we have any sort of dislocation or break, what happens is the soft tissue around the joint tightens up essentially as a protective mechanism to protect the joint. So think of your muscles as like a shield for your joints, right? So for instance, if I'm riding my bike and I fall off my bike and I dislocate my shoulder, everything around my shoulder is going to go into defense mode and tighten up. Biceps, delts, traps, pec, lats, everything is going to get tight because it wants to kind of keep the joint together and keep the joint stable. So stretching is going to be step number one. Now, how often should you do it? You could do it daily. It's not I would start, especially with something like that, 2 to 3 times a week. Just take it easy. Start to see if you're getting progress off that. If you are, keep going. If not, increase it to trying to do it more, to do it daily. And then just that amount of volume is going to, without a doubt, start to increase progress. But again, we kind of don't go into every day starting tomorrow. You know, maybe next week do 2 or 3 times a week, and then add a day until you're doing it daily. What I found is if you really focus on an area for about 4 to 6 weeks, you can do stuff daily, and you're going to see a lot of progress in that time, especially when it comes to stretching and things like that. And especially if it has such a like if it's a really like a weak point in terms of you know, its mobility or strength, really. Again, these areas are going to have the most progress the fastest because they have the most room to progress, right? So broken wrist, even finger, or dislocated, just doing these stretches 2 to 3 times a week initially to start, and then you can ramp it up to daily. Again, just it doesn't have to be too long, but you know, just move through it. The more movement you get on a daily basis, the better. The intensity is what you're going to want to manage. So maybe 2 or 3 days a week, you really kind of push the range. Maybe the other days you just kind of explore, you know, go into them lightly just to get the wrist moving, and then just move along. Don't spend too much time in it, and then just, you know, reserve those days for it. So hopefully that answers your question. But yeah, just, you know, getting that wrist to move in all the directions it's capable of moving is going to be step number 1, and just getting that soft tissue to loosen up. Especially because
I'll just add to that too. For the wrist stretches, if there was any of those stretches you were unable to straighten your elbow, do that daily.
Yeah.
So just sharing my own experience, I tore my bicep, which is what really led me down this range obsession, because it was just, you know, a big eye opener. And, you know, rebuilding a bicep tendon was all about elbow extension, and I didn't even have elbow extension before I injured it. So a lot of those stretches, especially reverse grip, like a position that's non-traditional, just being flat on your hand, if you can't straighten your elbow, work on that daily. Work on, because you're not gonna overtrain that. It's the strength stuff, like the first knuckle positions and planking. Like doing that daily would probably be more detrimental. But I mean, just working on the extensor muscles and opening those up. Like if you're unable to straighten your elbow in those positions, you should be warming up with that kind of stuff daily. And then what was the other aspect of it?
Finger.
Oh, the grip.
So you can isolate your finger.
Yeah, think of grip more as endurance right now than strength. So when it comes to rebuilding your grip is such a strength predominant thing. Think of it as an endurance-based activity. So if you're using crushers, or if you can find other grip exercises that you can do at a higher rep range, like 20 reps plus, that would be more show of a focus point for you right now than really heavy grip strength work.
Yeah, and crushers are cheap and they're small. So you can buy them on Amazon. They're like, you can put them in your pocket. Like you can take them anywhere. You know, you sit in the airport and go and building your grip. You know, grip is really important. And a lot of research has shown that it's actually, for aging, probably the most important factor. They have found that people that have, you know, osteo issues, bone issues, arthritis, all these things, they have really, really, really weak grip, terribly weak grip. So they've actually found that you actually age better. Grip strength plays a huge role in that. There's also ways, which we're not going to go into today, but you can measure your recovery based on your grip strength. So they actually have grip meters on Amazon that test your grip, and you can tell how well you're recovering based on your grip strength fresh out of bed. So grip strength is important, and from Poliquin, even from Coach Summers, it's probably one of the most important things because it has such a huge effect on your ability to be strong at almost anything else that you can do. The stronger you can grip something and squeeze something, the more overall musculature you get involved in your body to execute a movement. So weak grip will inhibit your progress on almost anything you can do. So it is very, very, very important.
Cool.
Thank
Anything
you.
else?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. Anybody else? All right. So next week, guys, next Sunday, 12 o'clock, tell your friends, tell your ATG fam, your Real Movement friends and family. We'll get back into some more hamstrings, calves, quads, hip flexors, that kind of thing. It's going to be a really fun session. So we'll do some different things than we did last time. So I look forward to seeing you guys there. Then, same time, you guys have a good week with your training. I look forward to seeing you guys and your progress and talking to you guys this week. See how you guys go. So again, if you have any more questions or anything kind of sticks or you forget anything, I'll have this video up probably within the next couple days on the website, so you can always go back and look at it. Otherwise, if you have any questions, just shoot me a message on WhatsApp, and I can answer them there for you if you guys have anything else that might pop up as you guys kind of process this class. So other than that, guys, we'll see you next weekend, and so have a good week.
Hi, Lucas.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to catch you before you head out. Firstly, thank you so much. That was amazing. I'm really loving these Sunday, well, for me, Sunday evening classes. So I just wanted to thank you, first of all.